I'm Lauren Mitchell, 38 years old. If you saw me in passing, you'd likely notice a polished woman living in a neat two-story home in a quiet Houston suburb. Picture green lawns, white picket fences, and kids zipping by on scooters. My life seems idyllic: a kind husband, a cozy home, and a daughter off at college in Austin. From the outside, there's no reason for me to complain. But sometimes, it's not a storm that breaks you, it's the calm that lingers too long. My husband, Daniel Walsh, is a software engineer at a major tech company in Houston, always juggling Zoom meetings or debugging code late into the night. He's brilliant, reserved, and thrives on routine. For nearly 15 years, we've built a steady life together: no scandals, no shouting matches, no betrayals. But that's exactly the problem. Our marriage feels like a playlist stuck on loop, every note predictable. No highs, no surprises. I used to run marketing campaigns for local businesses, but after our daughter left for college, I shifted to freelance work from home. At first, I loved the freedom redesigning the living room with finds from Pottery Barn, trying recipes from Food Network, joining spin classes at the local gym. But soon, it all became routine. I'd clean the house, cook dinner, glance at the clock, and wait for Daniel to walk through the door. Our dinners were so silent I could hear the clink of silverware on plates. Daniel's not at fault. He's still hard-working, polite, kisses me every morning before heading to his home office. But somewhere along the line, he stopped looking at me like a woman. We lie in bed side by side, but there's an invisible wall between us, one neither of us has the courage to cross. I stopped recognizing myself too. My favourite dresses sit untouched in the closet. The makeup I buy gathers dust on the bathroom counter. When I look in the mirror, I see a faded Lauren, same face, but the spark in my eyes is gone. I'm not sad, not happy. I'm just hollow. I thought it was temporary, something I'd push through, but the emptiness grew, seeping into every moment. I started daydreaming about things that never happened, desires I'd buried, feelings I thought I'd outgrown. One morning, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, I whispered, if I vanished, would anyone even care? I can't pinpoint when Daniel's tone started to shift. Maybe it was one night when he casually asked, "Do you ever picture yourself with someone else?" I brushed it off with a laugh, thinking it was a joke. But he didn't smile. He was serious, and it wasn't a one-off. His words grew bolder. In bed, he'd paint vivid fantasies, me with another man, sometimes even with him watching. At first, I rolled my eyes, dismissing it as playful bedroom talk. But Daniel persisted, describing scenes with a hunger in his eyes, gauging my reaction. I was unsettled. This wasn't me. I've never been the type for wild bedroom adventures. But a hidden part of me started listening. Maybe it was the monotony of my days. Maybe I was curious why Daniel, the most logical man I know, was so drawn to this idea. He started talking about Caleb Hayes, a personal trainer he met at an upscale gym downtown. Daniel described him like a character from a movie: tall, muscular, black, with intense eyes and a confidence that commanded attention. He said Caleb was different, that seeing him made Daniel imagine me in Caleb's arms, wondering how it would feel. That hit me hard. Part of me was terrified. Another part didn't recoil. Not because I agreed, but because I was stunned to find I wasn't as repelled as I should have been. Daniel kept going, saying he wasn't jealous or insecure. He called it freeing a way for me to explore parts of myself he couldn't touch. I asked, "Why do you want this? Am I not enough?" He shook his head. "It's not about you being less. It's about you deserving to feel every part of who you are, even the parts you've locked away." I lay awake that night, my mind a tangle of fear, doubt, and a faint thrill. I didn't know if I was losing myself or waking up. But Daniel had stirred something deep, a place without safety or duty, just raw instinct and want. Weeks later, when I thought the idea had faded, Daniel took me to a sleek steakhouse in downtown Houston. The night felt normal until he leaned across the table, voice calm, and said, "Caleb's waiting upstairs." I spoke to him. "If you're ready, we can go up." The restaurant's hum vanished. I stared at Daniel, searching for a hint of humour. There was none. I stood, hands icy, heart pounding. Instead of walking away, I followed him to the elevator. Each floor we passed pulled me further from reality, from the woman I'd been. The hotel room door opened. Soft lighting, a hint of cologne, the air thick with tension. Caleb stood there, just as Daniel described, tall, commanding, his presence overwhelming. He looked at me, tilting his head slightly. A silent invitation. I glanced at Daniel. He nodded. I stepped inside, unsure if it was right or wrong, only knowing nothing would be the same. I'd never felt so alive and so lost. The elevator doors parted, and I stepped out like a stranger in my own story. My hands shook, my pulse loud in my ears. Each step on the plush hallway carpet echoed unspoken fears, doubts, and something, daring. Daniel led the way, calm, as if guiding me to a gallery opening. Not another man's room. At room 817 he paused, his eyes asking. "You sure I didn't nod or shake my head?" I just clenched my fists to keep from knocking, but I didn't need to. The door swung open before Daniel could act. Caleb stood there, shirtless, in black athletic shorts, the waistband low, revealing toned abs and a tattoo curling down his side. His eyes locked onto mine, no greeting, no small talk, just a stare that froze me in place. I don't recall crossing the threshold. It felt like a dream. The room glowed dimly, heavy with spicy cologne and something primal. A bottle of champagne sat open on the table, 2 glasses beside a crumpled napkin. Caleb stepped aside, letting me pass. Our shoulders brushed, his skin warm, radiating a wild energy like the scent of risk. Daniel settled into a corner armchair, silent, avoiding our eyes. He poured a glass of champagne and sat, a spectator to a scene he'd set in motion but couldn't direct. The room was still, stretched taut between right and wrong. Caleb broke the quiet. He stepped close, his hand resting lightly on my hip, deliberate, unhurried. He leaned in, whispering, "If you want to stop, just say it." I stood frozen. I could have said no, could have walked away, but I didn't. I just breathed, waiting. Caleb's first kiss wasn't soft. It was fierce, claiming, rewriting everything I knew about touch. His hand slid to my waist, then tugged my dress off my shoulder. It fell to the floor like a sigh. I stood there, vulnerable, before 2 men, my husband and a stranger. Yet, oddly, I felt no shame. I felt unleashed. Caleb didn't hurry. He lifted me effortlessly, setting me on the bed like it was a ceremony. As his eyes traced my body, I wasn't Lauren, the woman who shopped at Target, baked casseroles, or folded laundry with precision. I was a woman alive, breathing, craving. And when he shed his last piece of clothing, I looked at him and knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I thought it was just a brief detour, a quick escape from marriage's routine to feel alive, then return to normal. But the deeper I went, the clearer it became there was no going back. Daniel noticed the shift. I was distracted when he spoke, checking my phone without thinking. I stopped reaching for him at night, stopped cooking his favourite dishes. Once, when he hugged me from behind, I flinched not from cold, but because I'd forgotten how his touch once warmed me. One night, as I set my phone down, Daniel looked into my eyes and asked, "Are you falling for him?" I froze. No one prepares you for that. I didn't nod or deny. I just whispered, "I don't know." He didn't press. He stood, walked to his office, and shut the door. It was the first night since we married that he didn't kiss my forehead before bed. After that, Caleb and I met more often, no longer rushed hotel meetups near the airport. We texted late into the night, called when Daniel was out. Caleb sent photos, videos, messages that made my cheeks burn with one glance. I replied in kind. Guilt stung at first, but it faded like my mind and body had split from reality. I wasn't Daniel's wife anymore. I was someone else, bold, sensual, alive. I bought lingerie just for Caleb's eyes. I wore red lipstick not for my husband, but to leave traces on another man's shirt. One morning, Daniel quietly said he'd invited Caleb to our house for dinner. I thought I'd misheard. But no, he meant it. When Caleb arrived, wine bottle in hand, my heart raced. He smiled, calm, as if he belonged. I stood there, breathless. Dinner was a tense charade. My hands trembled as I poured wine. Daniel asked Caleb about his gym clients. I stared at my plate, but Caleb's eyes stayed on me, his gaze sparking my skin without a word. After dinner, Daniel lounged on the couch, jazz playing softly, and said, "Last time, I watched. Tonight, I want to see how far you'll go." His words weren't an invitation, they were a guillotine for a marriage already fraying. I looked at Caleb. He stood, took the glass from my hand, set it down, and pulled me to my feet. His grip on my waist was sure as he led me upstairs, like he'd done it 1,000 times. I glanced back at Daniel. He nodded, his eyes hollow. That night was different. Caleb wasn't gentle. He didn't ask what I wanted. He knew, and he took raw, relentless, pushing me to edges I didn't know I had. I moaned, cried, clawed the sheets, grasping for sanity. But I'd lost that long ago. When it was over, I lay gasping on the floor, eyes blurred with sweat and tears. Daniel approached. He didn't touch me, just placed a hand on my shoulder and asked, "Did you feel something I couldn't give you?" I didn't answer, but he saw it all in my eyes. I thought the hotel night where I gave myself to a stranger while my husband watched was the breaking point. I was wrong. The real fracture came when Caleb walked into our home like he owned it. No knock, no hesitation. Daniel had invited him. He opened wine, played soft jazz, like it was just a casual evening. But his eyes betrayed him pain tangled with resolve. I knew then this wasn't a game. This was the end of the line. Dinner was a suffocating silence. The three of us sat like a broken family, with an outsider and a husband who'd relinquished his claim. Each clink of a knife on a plate sliced into my nerves. I couldn't swallow the roast I'd cooked. Afterward, Daniel leaned back, wineglass in hand, and said lightly, "This time, I don't just want to watch. I want to see you push to the limit." He wasn't angry, wasn't shouting, but his words chilled me more than any outburst could. They were a surrender, and I was the witness to our collapse. Caleb didn't need more. He stood, took my hand, and led me upstairs. Each step cut into my heart not from fear, but because I knew after tonight I wouldn't be a wife, a mother, or anything I'd once stood for. Our bedroom was dim, scented with lavender from the morning's diffuser. But in Caleb's hands, all softness vanished. He didn't whisper, didn't soothe. He took me like I'd always been his, pushing me to boundaries I didn't know existed, calling me names I never thought I'd hear, let alone answer with desperate, broken moans. I tried to stifle my cries, biting the pillow, but I knew Daniel heard everything. He was downstairs, and this time I wasn't performing. I didn't hold back. I let go, letting instinct take over. When Caleb finished, I lay spent on our bed, the white sheets I'd chosen at Pottery Barn when I was still a normal wife, now crumpled, soaked, stained with a truth I couldn't hide. Daniel came in soon after. He didn't cry or lash out. He just sat beside me, touching my cheek like it was the last time. His eyes weren't curious or thrilled anymore. They were the eyes of a man who'd lost not to his wife's lover, but to himself for thinking he could share love and keep it. "You're not mine anymore," he said, his voice soft, like a final goodbye. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I cut the cord that held us together. The next morning, I woke to a cold bed. Daniel was gone. No tears, no fight, no trace of a breakup. Just a small note on the nightstand. One sentence: "I thought giving you freedom would save us. But now I know it was the fastest way to lose you forever." Daniel left quietly, the way he'd lived our marriage. No noise, no wreckage. Just a vast, cold void stretching from his pillow to the kitchen, where his coffee mug sat unwashed. I thought I'd cry. I didn't. I just sat on the rumpled bed, staring at his note. One short line: "Sharp as a knife, I lost you the moment you came alive again." Daniel understood. He always did. But understanding isn't forgiveness. That final night didn't just kill his love, it killed the woman I'd been, the one who saw family as an unbreakable shield. Caleb kept texting, kept checking in, but I started seeing clearly. He never wanted a bond. He thrived on control, on storming into someone's life and leaving before the fallout. He didn't ask about Daniel, didn't ask if I was okay. Just vague texts. "Miss you or want to meet tonight?" At first, I replied. I met him. I let myself sink into the passion. But after each time, coming home alone to an empty house, its silence echoing my sighs, my heart grew heavy. Daniel wasn't there to touch my shoulder, make tea when I felt sick, or ask, "You okay today?" Those small gestures I'd taken for routine, I now knew they were love. I kept seeing Caleb for a while, but the thrill dulled. The wild nights turned repetitive. He wasn't gentle anymore, just rushed, rough, like I was a prize he'd grown tired of. I felt used a body without a name, without a heart. Then one day, Caleb stopped texting. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. I called. No answer. Messages went unread. I was left with nothing, no Daniel, no Caleb, just me in a tangle of passion and guilt. The house became unbearable. Every corner held a memory. The set of 3 wine glasses, now just me pouring for one. The family photo I'd framed, now face down in a drawer. Passing the mirror, I no longer fixed my hair. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. People ask, do I regret it? I don't know. Honestly, those moments with Caleb made me feel more alive than ever. But they cost me everything. I'm no longer a wife, a lover, or even myself. I'm a woman who stepped too close to the edge, thinking I'd only warm myself, only to be consumed entirely. Some nights, I dream of Daniel. He sits in our old armchair, staring at me, not angry, not sad, just silent. I wake with my heart racing. I started writing, not to confess, but to survive. I write what I never dared admit. I write apologies Daniel will never read. I write for myself, the woman who took a detour thinking it was freedom, only to find a dead end. I'm not asking for forgiveness or pity. I'm not even sure I regret it fully. I write because if I don't, what's left of me will rot like forgotten flowers in a dry vase. I was a good wife once. I loved Daniel the way I thought was enough. I kept our home warm, made his life steady, safe. But that steadiness made me a stranger to myself. Neither of us was entirely wrong. We just lost each other without noticing. When Caleb entered my life, he was a gust of wind, stirring the dust I'd lived with for years. He made me feel alive, truly alive. I won't justify what I did. I betrayed Daniel, and I betrayed the values that once held me up. I don't blame anyone. Daniel gave me a choice, and I chose feeling over duty. I was wrong to think consent wouldn't leave scars. I was wrong to believe I could live 2 lives at once, the quiet wife and the reckless lover. Life doesn't let you keep both. Caleb left as suddenly as he came, no ties. No consequences for him, just a mess in my heart. He never promised anything. I was the one hoping for what he never offered. I blame myself more than him. Some nights, I lie in bed, missing Daniel, not his body, but the way he cared about the little things, the way he fixed my pillow when I dozed on the couch, the smell of his Monday dress shirts, the way he stayed silent instead of raging. That silence makes the fracture hurt more. Someone once asked, if you could go back, would you change anything I don't know? If I hadn't walked that path, I might have died inside, trapped in repetition. But because I did, I know some things, once lost, are gone forever. I'm no longer a wife or a lover. I'm just a woman who stepped too close to the edge and lost everything beautiful inside. I thought freedom would save me. But sometimes, freedom comes too late and it's just a trap wrapped in sugar. If you've read this far, thank you for hearing a soul that slipped out of tune. Judge me. Stay silent. Whatever feels right. But if you take one thing from my story, let it be this. Don't try to fix loneliness with fleeting passion. You might trade a lifetime for a few moments you thought were living.